Hi, boys and girls. It is time for the final part of our Easter story and the best part of the story of all. We have heard about Jesus' arrest and his death and his burial, how he was buried in a tomb and a stone was rolled in front of it, and there were guards put there so that nobody could take the body of Jesus. And that's where our story picks up today. Some women went to visit Jesus at the tomb. This is our picture. Jesus was dead and his followers were very sad. Truthfully, Mary Magdalene and some of her friends went to see Jesus in the tomb Sunday morning to finish wrapping his body in spices and cloth. This was the usual way that the Jewish people buried their dead. Right away, the women could see that the large stone that had covered the entrance of the tomb was rolled back. They went into the tomb and they did not see the body of Jesus. While they were wondering what could have happened, the Lord's angels, dressed in shiny white cloth, appeared to them, and the women were terrified. Why are you looking for a living person in a tomb? The angel asked, He is not here, for he has risen. Remember that he told you that he had to be arrested and crucified, and on the third day he would rise again. The women did remember. At once they ran to tell the disciples that Jesus was alive. After hearing what the woman had to say, Peter ran to the tomb. He went inside and saw the cloth that covered Jesus' body on the ground. But Jesus was not there. Where could he be? Peter wondered. Could he really be alive? Mary Magdalene was still very upset. She met a man standing in the garden near the tomb. It was Jesus, but she didn't recognize him at first. The man asked, Woman, why are you crying? Mary replied, Because someone has taken the body of the Lord, and I don't know where he is. Then Jesus said, Mary. At that moment, Mary recognized that it was him. It was Jesus. He was alive. Later that day, two men who were believers in Jesus were walking along the road to the village. While they were talking about all the things that had happened to Jesus, a third person caught up to them and began to walk with them. The two believers in Jesus did not know it, but they were walking with Jesus. They just didn't recognize him. Jesus joined the men for supper that night. At the supper table, Jesus said a prayer and blessed the food. All at once, they recognized that it was Jesus. He was alive. The two men ran back to Jerusalem, where they found the disciples and shared the wonderful news. As they were sharing, Jesus himself appeared. He showed the disciples that he was really alive. In the days that followed, Jesus appeared many times, comforting and encouraging his believers. During one of those times, over 500 people saw Jesus with their own eyes. They saw him. Jesus told the disciples to spread the good news to all the people in the world. He wanted everyone to know that he took the punishment for their sins, and he did it on the cross, so that if they believed in him, they could have a relationship with him and live with him forever in heaven. The Easter story is the greatest story in all of the Bible because it's what it's all about. It's about his death, his burial, and his resurrection. That Jesus took the punishment for sin on the cross for us. He died for you and for me so that we didn't have to take the payment for our sins, that we do things wrong every day. But instead of us having to deal with that sin, Jesus took it all away. If we will just believe in him and ask him to come into our heart and that we would trust him, he'll give us that eternal life. And that's what the true celebration of Easter is about. And people are saying because we're stuck at home and we don't get to go to church that Easter is canceled or Easter won't be the same. But Easter is about Jesus. Jesus has risen. He died on that cross. And 3 days later, he did the miraculous thing and he rose from the grave. And it's the greatest thing that we could ever do is to celebrate Jesus on Easter. So on Sunday, even though you're not going to church and you may not get dressed up in your pretty clothes and you may not get to be with all of your family that you're used to being with on Easter, remember that Easter is about Jesus, that Jesus died, he rose again, and he did it for you. He did it so you could have a relationship with him, so that you could have eternal life in heaven with him. And he loves you, and that's what he wants for you. And if you're wanting to know more about that, or you are wanting to make that decision to follow Jesus, talk to your mom or dad. They're there. And you know what? It'll be the best day for them to get to share that with you. I hope that you have a wonderful Easter and that you enjoy celebrating the death, the burial, and the resurrection of Jesus over the next few days. know that I miss you and I love you, and I hope you have a fantastic Easter.